welcome to the Underdog Chronicles podcast, where we tell the extraordinary stories of ordinary people. On today's episode, we will be interviewing Sebastian Daniels, the founder of Ground Culture, who will be sharing the struggles and victories that got him to where he is today. Okay, welcome, Sebastian. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today. How are you doing today? How are you feeling?
Yeah, hi Miriam. Lovely to be on the show as well. Thank you very much for having me. Feeling good, feeling strong. Good start to the year, and feeling optimistic for 2024, or 2020 more, as they've been saying. I'm feeling that more this year. How about you? How are you feeling for this year?
Oh, I'm feeling very hopeful, a bit uncertain because I I still have to figure out what I'm gonna do for the rest of the year, um but it's exciting. It's exciting to be done with school and now gotta figure out what to do in this big wide world.
Yeah, scary time, but a fun time. I remember being in your shoes and just feeling that same feeling. But it's also quite a nice feeling because you can really do anything, you know. Um, when you're coming out of university, like the world is your oyster. I think. Get a bit older. I'm 30 this year, and you start to be like, ooh, options are slightly more limited, but at least coming out of university, you really have the ability to do whatever. Obviously, a bit scary at times, but there's not really wrong moves. There's smart and not so smart moves, but I don't think there's wrong moves. So yeah, exciting place to be for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's actually very comforting. Like coming from someone like you, I appreciate that. Gives me hope on the future, as in like the next month. But speaking of how you felt when you left uni, could you maybe give me or like illustrate just a brief timeline from when you were in uni to now?
From when I was in uni, when did I finish? 2017, and I'd run a business in university with stock files, and we'd done really, really well. And we'd won a lot of national pitcher competitions. We'd raised a whole lot of funding. We had a team of 9 at one point. We launched. We ended up like pretty much failing. And then my partner left, and then we merged into some other company, which we still have shares, which is great. But leaving university, I was left very kind of empty, and kind of having to restart, as well as to start, because like you said just now, ending university opens up a whole new chapter of your life where you start something. But for me, I also had to restart because I just finished this really cool startup. But yeah, then I spent a year running coffee shop reviews. Went to 130 coffee shops, and it was a way to connect with my dad because he had dementia. But he used to write coffee shop. Well, he used to write breakfast reviews for the Sunday Argus, and I just wanted to connect with him. So it was my way of connecting with him. I did that for a year, and then started selling. And I was working a consulting job for UCT with stock files as well, traditional savings schemes, and spending a lot of time in Khayelitsha. And I found a whole lot of cool products in Khayelitsha, and then I also had met all these great coffee shop owners. And I thought, why not just try to sell the township-based products to these 130 coffee shop owners that I just interviewed over the course of a year. So the next year, I spent the whole year trying to, basically selling the products to those about a range of 6 different entrepreneurs, making up about 15 different products. It included honey, chai, hot chocolate, red espresso. The honey was from Khayelitsha. Chai was local. Did a bit of Sikki's coffee, and really just playing around with the idea of putting a product with a great story into the hands of a consumer who generally shops at an independent cafe. And yeah, that went quite well. Over the course of the year, we built up 75 coffee shops that were buying this range of 15 products, obviously, each one averaging about 2 to 3 products each. Yeah, and that started to go really well. So that's year two. Then year three, COVID hit, and that all came to a complete standstill in a way. Um, but luckily, I had some grant funding, and I got the grant funding because I justified that the honey I was talking about, who's made by this amazing township-based entrepreneur, Umsukuli Zilani. When I started working with him, he was selling 25 kilograms a month, and over the course of a year, we 10 times that to 250 kilograms per month. And that was really like a stat that showed the what the formal sector could do towards developing a township-based business. And through that, I justified some grant funding, which I was going to use to build the wholesale model further. But when COVID hit, all the coffee shops closed down, and yeah, we needed to adapt. So we launched. That's when I made the change from Coffee Shop Blues, which was the distribution and the coffee review company to ground culture. And I'd been waiting to do that for a while. I had the logo for a while. I loved the name, and I just thought, yeah, there was power behind it. And yeah, then we launched the online store within 3 weeks, like scrapped together. Um, yeah, literally just scrapped together a bunch of products we could find, packed grains into little brown paper bags, sealed them with paper-based stickers, made this whole like environmentally conscious dry goods range, and then brought also about 12 entrepreneurs on and launched in 3 weeks. And we got like 100 orders in the first month, which was amazing. And it really felt like that was the direction that we needed to head in, and that there was a lot of growth opportunity lying there. But yeah, over the course of the next 6 months, kind of, I say we kept doing 100 orders a month, 100 orders a month, and then they slowly decreased 80 orders, 50 orders, 50 orders. And then we kept it kind of stable at 50. But the more the shops kind of, well, the COVID restrictions relaxed, the yeah, obviously the less people ordered online. So it became, and additionally, Checker 6060 and the Woolworths app and the Pick and Pay app, they all started to like able to handle the demand a lot more and started to focus a lot more on that. And with their just massive range, it became hard to compete purely on a as an online grocery store. We had to really focus on a niche of township-based entrepreneurs. And yeah, we kind of not lost a bit of steam. I mean, we did lose a bit of steam, but we realized like we need to do something else quite drastic to build sustainability, and because we burned through all the grant funding, burned through quite a lot. Like I was deep into my credit card, which I'd got during another job. Grateful for the credit card, but when you're sitting in 60,000 in credit card debt and you have no way of paying it off, it's quite terrifying. Uh, so then made like a crazy impromptu decision to open a coffee shop in Observatory, and I'd kind of I'd had my dad passed a few years prior, and he'd left like 50,000 rand. He was not very good with his money, but that's all he left. And I've been waiting for something to put it at, and I decided I'm gonna open a retail store, because that complements the online store. So when was that? That was 2022. Yeah, 2021. I don't know, somewhere there. The year into COVID, and the rent was super cheap because no one was renting. And yeah, and then very quickly, the food went well. We sold a bunch. I mean, the retail store was doing alright. Sold a bunch of stock, but quickly realized that people preferred our coffee and our food to actually the products, and realized that there was a lot more money in that. So shifted over to kind of really pushing the food side. Um, and yeah, then that's what we've kind of been doing for the last 3 years. But online's still going. wholesale, we still have about 25 coffee shops we supply. We also started a co-working space because our landlord had 300 square meters on the top floor of the coffee shop that was just empty. And we did that for a year and a half, which we've unfortunately stopped now because they've developed student accommodation, which was quite frustrating, just as we were kind of getting it going. But yeah, I think in the last 3 years since I said I was deep in the debt, I went into, well, not deep in debt, but just on my credit card, went into survivalist mentality, and I've just hustled to get out of it since, which I don't think is like the best thing, but we are out of those grey, dirty waters now, and speaking about strategizing for the year, finally able to look forward about 6 months, and really plan things out. So yeah, the last 3 years have been absolute mayhem. I mean, even the last 4 years of just doing so many different things, from helping people, like doing the Long Street Carnival, and making a deal with someone to have a stand there and run off their liquor license. Opening a cafe at Long Street Backpackers and running that for a while. Having a kiosk in Long Street. Opening a co-working space in our space. Running events through our space. Having comedy nights, drag nights. We've done doing so many markets as well. Doing festivals, selling food at festivals. We've done a lot of stuff over the last 3 years, but a lot of that was in just really just stay afloat. And now finally we're back to the basics, just to the coffee shop. And yeah, I mean, the thing I missed as well is I built the whole coffee shop with my own two hands, and just a lot of handouts, because I wanted to understand what a township-based entrepreneur goes through, and what like, how do you build a business with no capital? I mean, I said I had luckily had that 50,000 rand from my dad, which I'm so glad I didn't just put into the credit card. I put it into something that could help generate something to pay off the credit card. But yeah, I mean, you realize, like, it's not a lot of money. That gets you a coffee machine and a few tables, and yeah, then a coffee machine, a few tables, some chairs, and a drill. And since then, I taught myself woodwork, and I built the cafe on my own. And yeah, now the cafe is pretty much done, complete, and there's not much more for me to build. So, yeah, just reinvested everything into making it look nice. And last year we tripled our sales at the cafe. So, kind of making its own progress there, and now just focusing purely on getting the cafe up to speed, and seeing what spin-offs we can run off the cafe, because we've got the systems in place, we've got our suppliers, we've got our recipes. Um, yeah, we kind of know we've got our consistency down. So now seeing what's next, and how can we expand what we're currently doing to make to make more expansion and growth. But yeah, that's a long-winded answer to your timeline question. But yeah, that's kind of been the timeline.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot has happened in the past 4 years. That's incredible. Like, I mean, from starting a business in university to then, owning, to like going through such a, like, how do I say it? Such a turbulent, like journey. Because I mean, the way you described it, it wasn't like, everyone pictures progress as like this linear graph. But the way you described it, it's like it looks very much like a mountain. It's like you've got your ups, you've got your downs. Like it was, it was good this year, and then it plummeted, and then you had build up, and then it plummeted, and then you had to adapt, and then it plummeted. Um, and I think that really speaks true to like anyone's journey, is progress is not linear. It's like it's full of ups and downs, and
Mm.
as you said, you just have to keep adapting. um just speaking, I wanted to actually touch upon um right at the beginning of your story, where you said your stockfile business, you kind of had to give it up. Could you maybe like talk me through how you felt at that point in your life? Like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sure, that's one of the darkest periods of my life in a way, because not only did this business, and this was like an awesome business. I still get asked about it all the time. As great as ground culture is, like it had so much potential. Like we'd pitched to all the banks in South Africa. We pitched to the boards. We'd gone to London to pitch. We'd raised like 500,000 just by winning competitions. And we're really seen as trailblazers in the tech space, which was really cool. But yeah, we just made a few like immature decisions where you think you can just do anything overnight. And I think, yeah, we also we gave it up a bit too early in a way. We threw in the towel. And I think that often happens when you finish university. You kind of think you have to restart, which I don't always think you do. But yeah, I mean, we had to let 9 employees go. We had to, which is really tough when you're 21 or 22. We had to, I got into like the best incubator in Africa and managed to pull off like an exit where we got shares in this other company, but pushed us through this accelerator. Um, and then you kind of, finishing university is also like a big thing because university is kind of your purpose, And while you're at university, you can really, yes, you're constantly saying that thing to yourself of like, when you're a kid, you're like, when I get to high school, I'll do this. Or when I get out of school, I'm going to be this person. Or when I go to university and I finish it. And and then you're saying when I finish university, is what I'm going to do. And then you finish university, and there's kind of not that you can't make excuses of I'll wait for this to happen anymore. You are now an adult. You are now you've got your degree, which you're fortunate to get. Um, and now also all your friends are going into jobs and very certain directions. And I've just always wanted to be an entrepreneur and just never really wanted to work for anyone. But yeah, it just was kind of like, okay, what now? My dad also, like I said, I mentioned he had dementia. My grandfather, who I was very close with, just passed away. Um, my ex-girlfriend, I dated for 7 years, broke up with me in that year as well. So I was really feeling that feeling of like, what the hell am I going to do now? But I knew I had to be with my dad and I had to look after him, and I wanted to connect with him, and I wanted to start from the ground up. That was really what I wanted to do. I think with the Stockfile, we'd got all this money, we'd gone straight to the top, we pitched to all the banks. They thought we were really cool, but we missed some of the basis of building a business. So I wanted to start right from the ground. And that was tough for a few months. I mean, I think it's been tough since then, basically, but but yeah, just persistence and belief at that age, and I think you have a lot of it when you're younger, especially early 20s. Got a lot of optimism, belief, but yeah, not as much. What do I say? Mature, not mature thinking. I think that's the wrong word, but just like foresight. Your foresight isn't always the best, and your practical learnings, you haven't necessarily got them all, but you've definitely got all this like optimism and belief. Um, So yeah, was tough, but I think that pure optimism and belief in yourself and what you want to do will carry you a long way. But yeah, you got to be sensible with what actually works. And yeah, and where you want to be in 5 years, I think is always a good question to ask.
Yeah, thank you. So I see that there's this consistent pattern of like entrepreneurship in the timeline that you illustrated for us. First this year two, the business that you built up, the stock file business, and then obviously coffee shop blues, where you started like reaching out to like local entrepreneurs and connecting them with coffee shops, and then ground culture. I just like see this underlying aspect of just entrepreneurship, whether it's you being an entrepreneur or you empowering other entrepreneurs. um just coming to that, how would you define entrepreneurship?
How would I define entrepreneurship?
Like, what is your definition?
I think it's taking like risking it for the biscuit. But not necessarily. I think it's changed a lot. I think the classic definition is creating something that didn't exist before and making money from it. Um, that's probably the best way to describe it. Because if you're not making money from it, then you're just a creative. And if you're not creating it, then you're just a businessman, in a sense. Whereas entrepreneurship is really creating something from nothing. Um, but like with that being said, like yeah, so that's what I think. But when I was younger, I really thought entrepreneurship's about not working for anyone and doing your own thing and just getting through the struggles and being all on your own. But I actually think that the older that I get, and having spent a lot of time with a lot of other entrepreneurs and leaders and whatnot, is there's many ways to do entrepreneurship, and often, like I think a lot of people in their 30s and their 40s break away from their jobs and become entrepreneurs with a big backing, and yet being the younger Sebastian, I didn't feel that was real entrepreneurship. But these days, I think like that's often a better way to do it. Sometimes is to build yourself up, to learn about skills, and not just do it all on the spot. Because I made a lot of mistakes when I was younger, and I'm still making a lot of mistakes. It may have been nicer making mistakes while still earning a salary from someone else, and running something on the side, because it takes all the pressure off that business. When you have to being an entrepreneur that has to pay yourself as well as reinvest in your business, and it's incredibly difficult. But if you have a job, you can actually build a business on the side that doesn't need reliance, that doesn't need to pay you, and it actually removes you a bit from it. That's more. I mean, it's more of a businessman approach, but yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to be an entrepreneur these days. I think it's like I said in the base definition. I think it's just around creating something and finding a way to make money from it.
Yeah, I like that definition. It was definitely not a like a just a two-liner textbook definition. It's like it's more gritty, it's more real. Um, and I love how you transitioned from, how your definition changed from when you were younger to like to you now. Having learned all that you've learned and experienced all that you've experienced. Um, just speaking of younger Sebastian, right? Where would you say this entrepreneurship spirit came from? Because a lot of kids these days are like, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur. Because as you said, they don't want to work for anyone. They just want to run their own boat. They want to like, they want to, do things by themselves and make money. But as you said, once you get into it, it's not just that. It's like there's so many ways of doing it, and there's so much more to entrepreneurship than just those few simple like requirements that we kind of see when we're younger. So where would you say this your entrepreneurship spirit came from?
Um, Yeah, it's interesting. I'm not sure where it came from, but it's always been there. And yeah, I don't think you should be an entrepreneur just because you don't want to work for someone. I think that's the thing. I think you got to get so much joy from creating something, making money from it. Like ever since I was a kid, I used to. I remember when I was like even like 6 or 7, I'd take like lemon creams, and I'd take from my mom's cupboard and like Romany creams, and I'd mix them and I'd put them like 3 different biscuits in a sandwich bag, and I'd walk around the neighborhood trying to sell them. I don't know what I was doing. I don't know who bought from me, but some people did. And then I sold plants to try and make a bit of extra money. Just went to the nursery and then planted them, grew them, and then walked around the neighborhood selling plants. Um, and yeah, then I washed cars, got a neighbor washing cars, and then and when I was like 16, I got into this thing of like having these big parties, and charging entrance because everyone wanted to go to these under 18 parties, and I was like, oh, there's money here. And we one party was my sweet 16, and I charged everyone to come. I can't believe I actually did that, but like 600 people came, and then we had another one called Rock This Party where over 1,000 people came. It actually got shut down by the cops, but yeah, I just like doing those things. I think it was like the thing of just like trying something and seeing if it works. And yeah, that was just awesome. And I think I've definitely got a bit dampened by life since that age, even just speaking about it now. Because I was like, if you think about that, I was incredibly bold to just walk around the neighborhood and sell stuff. Like I wish I could do more of that today. But you kind of get a bit hurt by constant failure, and failure is not a bad thing. It teaches you a lot, but it can dampen that spirit. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly where it came from, but yeah, it's always been there. And then yeah, it really got coupled with social change. Both my parents are journalists, and yeah, I spent a lot of time growing up. My mom was a TV journalist. She was African Journalist of the Year. She was the reporter for SEBC 3 for the news. And I spent a lot of my time like in holidays hanging out with her and going to protests, and it filled this social change. And then I learned about Steve Biko, and I was just in the Black Consciousness movement, and it just was totally inspiring to me. Yeah, I just felt like South Africa needed what Steve Biko did with black people during apartheid was just build an undeniable sense of confidence in people that had lost their confidence. And yeah, and I wanted to somehow inspire that on general South Africans, regardless of race, is to feel proud of our culture and to feel like we really do have something special. Um, but yeah, I thought that the best way to do that is pride through entrepreneurship, and that's where I've just been driven to inspire entrepreneurs and to build a confidence within them. And yeah, it's definitely a hard line. It's definitely something that I've struggled with, but like, because it's just really hard. There's a lot of inequality in terms of access and opportunities, and also just understanding. So yeah, that fire was really unlocked during a lot of those teachings, and yeah, I've just kind of fallen in love with the township as well. I spent a lot of time in Kalicha specifically, but um, yeah, so entrepreneurships have kind of always been there, but the social element is really what's fueled my just desire to be all out to be an entrepreneur, because then I'm in control of the future I want to inspire. There's little red tape in terms of what direction I want the business to grow in, and yeah, it's unfiltered in terms of the change that I want to make. But so yeah, that's kind of, to answer your question, is definitely fueled now by wanting
Social.
to inspire and change people's lives.
So I know that you spoke about, you know, um, you know, the kind of the what would I call the informal sector, um, the entrepreneurs that you met in the townships, or just entrepreneurs you met along the way that are not necessarily like running a business, but are, still selling things and trying to make something, to make a living out of it. Could you maybe like share some of the challenges you encountered while trying to navigate the terrain between, the informal and the formal sectors, the township entrepreneurs and the coffee shops? And how did you overcome them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was actually quite an easy connection in a way. It wasn't the most profitable connection and long-term growing connection, but it was quite easy because the independent cafes in themselves are sometimes quite informal. Um, so those two connections is a lot. There was a lot more understanding between the two, and a lot of that's already happening in its own right. Independent cafes already source a lot of their products from local entrepreneurs that have walked around and pitched to them, regardless of where they're from or what race they are, whatever. There's a lot of understanding. I mean, almost every business that starts informally. It's just how do you legitimize and formalize your business? That's the challenging part, um, and that's the challenging part we face in townships and informal areas in South Africa, is that those businesses remain in Khayelitsha or Soweto, with very little infiltration into formal areas. So the role models, the fellow businesses that you work with, the deals you're trying to pull off remain all informal. And it makes it very difficult for you to actually formalize, because firstly, there's not the resources available. Secondly, you just don't really know how to. And I've just gone through. I'm going through the process now, and it's really difficult. Um, and yeah, I think that the biggest problem is is there's like a catch-22 between formalizing and remaining informal, because once you formalize, you get a lot of opportunities, you get a lot of access to grants opportunities. You need to be formal if you want to work with like Spa or Pick and Pay or um, any of these guys. You need to be tax compliant. You need to have inventory tracking systems. You need to your food products need to meet certain certifications and food quality certifications, and there's a lot of kind of red tape that you need to subscribe to work with these guys. But the catch-22 lies in the fact that it's expensive to actually formalize, because it involves getting your books up to date, getting your tax compliance up to date. There's a lot of you have to get accountants on board. You need to get track records. You need to price your stuff quickly. Logistically, it's really difficult because you're based in the township, which is often 40 kilometers away or 30 kilometers away from the city. You don't have a car, so you can't transport. There's no packaging shops in the township, so you have to go to the city to get the packaging. There's like a lot of stuff that happens there.
So, Sebastian, you were talking through some of the challenges, of being in the informal sector and then also being in the formal sector, and just kind of like, as you said, the catch-22, um, of both of them. Along this journey, what lessons would you say that you've learned about the dynamics of both the informal and formal sectors? And how has this shaped your entrepreneurial mindset?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I think like if you want to be a real deal businessman, you must formalize, because there's a lot of opportunities out there. Uh, and I think like we like to, I don't know, when the formal sector talks about the informal sector, it likes to like paint it like it's a whole different, like completely different industry, but it's really not. It's just not as written down. I was going to say it's not as formalized, but obviously it's not. The name says that. But yeah, it's just an unwritten set of rules, but operates pretty much exactly the same as the formal sector. Um, but maybe doesn't pay tax and doesn't get access to the opportunities that government requires. And yeah, it's a great shame because yeah, you're gonna have to pay tax if you formalize. Um, but it means if more people formalize and more people pay tax, infrastructure will get much better, um, and systems will get much better. But on top of that, you'll be able to access grants which are all there and offered all over our country and our provinces, by local governments as well as national governments. There's a hell of a lot of grants, tenders, all these things. But if you're not paying tax and you're not formalized, you don't get access to that. And when I say pay tax, you probably don't even have to pay tax for many years. Like I haven't really paid tax. Like we pay PAYE, and now we're getting VAT registered. But like in a business's first 5 years, you're not really making money. And if you're not making money, you're not paying tax until you get VAT registered. Then you're paying bloody VAT, which I hate. But but that's only at a threshold above R1 million. So like my advice would really be to formalize as soon as possible. Because you're going to end up shooting yourself in the foot over and over and over again when you can't access the opportunities that are available to you. Because obviously government's not going to want to help you if you don't tick their boxes, and that's the catch-22. You can't get formalized at a later stage because you're so uncompliant, but you can't get access to the opportunities because you're not compliant, but you can't get compliant because you don't have the access to the opportunities, and that's the real catch-22. But doing it as early as possible allows you to find a lot more opportunities within government, probably still not pay tax, you're still declaring your losses and you're declaring your numbers, but it means that you're building a strong track record of growth and success, and then the formal sector investors also will want to get involved and invest in you if that's where your business is at, because you have a track record of success or of growth. Um, so I mean, I think like this whole thing of formalizing and the informal economy, it all needs to be simplified a little bit. Just the fact that like we are running businesses, um, but how do we just get those businesses compliant? Because that's it. It's not like it's a totally different set of businesses. It's the same set of businesses, just they're not compliant. So yeah, I think my thinking around that is really grown to ask the question: how do we just get people compliant?
So, Sebastian, you so obviously you're focusing a lot on like sustainability and simplifying the process. Um, but looking ahead, what kind of legacy or impact do you hope to leave, both within your like entrepreneurial endeavors and on a personal level? So I've been entrepreneurial endeavors, so like with ground culture and on like a personal level.
Cool. So I mean, my main thing, I like my what am I saying? I want to unlock the potential of Africa. That's my overwhelming support for anything. That's what drives me. Is that I believe Africa's got so much potential and it's got the kind of culture um that I believe can actually save the world. Because before colonialists arrived, uh, Africa was completely sustainable, self-sufficient, lived in harmony with nature, and yeah, was a great place to live. I think we've been quite corrupted. Um, since colonists arrived, and I think that culture of Ubuntu and living in harmony has really been totally changed, and I hope we can find it again. But if you look at the macro factors on top of that, I mean, Africa's still got, I think it's 40% of the world's resources under the ground, and something like 70% of the remaining arable farmland in the world, and it's got this culture of really support and unity between people, although, like I said, it has been corrupted. I just believe that Africa can take advantage of that. It can take control back of the resources, and it can really work in harmony to support each other from all different African countries. So that's really like by the time I die, I would love to have seen that well on its way. I would love to see commercial farmers starting to build in Africa, African commercial farmers building in Africa. And when I say Africans, when I talk about Africans, I know I am a descendant of the colonists that I speak of, but unfortunately, I'm African these days. Whether I like it or not, I don't really have a choice. Like my family's been here for generations, and um, I'm African. I may be white, but I'm African, and I'm really proud about it. And I just want to see my beautiful continent unlocked in terms of value. So that's kind of what personally that I'd like to achieve. But for a business sense is I'd love to for ground culture to be a strong facilitator of the development of these kind of industries, whether it's through processing plants to help process the farmers' goods, whether it's around manufacturing, um, whether it's around helping to get land rights or like mining rights or agricultural rights, or facilitating partnerships between different African countries or building of infrastructure. That's ground culture's main role, and that's where we may have, like I said, detracted and lost focus a bit because we had to survive ourselves over the last few years. But the real focus and the crux of it is ground culture is a middleman between the informal economy and the formal economy, um, and when I say a middleman, is it's basically we're trying to inject money from the formal sector, formal sector capital into the informal economy in a way that develops entrepreneurs that allows them to reinvest in their own environments, to create jobs in their own environments, to formulate, to build the economy of their own environments, and yeah, to build this infrastructure that I talk about. And the formal sector and informal sector is just one example, and it only really makes sense in South Africa because we have these huge disparities, because we are the most unequal country in the world. Um, but moving forward, we want to help those entrepreneurs get their foot in the door through the formal sector, but then start exporting to America, start exporting to Europe, start partnering with other African countries, start, really reinvesting in the entrepreneurs around themselves. And I think ground culture can really be a vehicle for that, because our focus is finding amazing entrepreneurs, um, and selling their products to a consumer with money, and a consumer that cares. And so, yeah, the legacy that I'd really like to leave is that ground culture becomes a huge part of giving entrepreneurs access to markets, but developing their businesses to the point that they can give access to other entrepreneurs. And when I'm talking about entrepreneurs, I'm talking about thousands of entrepreneurs. Um, I like to invest in at least 1,000 businesses as ground culture, um, and yeah, inspire that kind of co-investment across the African um, continent, because I believe that we need to bring back that feeling of Ubuntu, that feeling of I've made it, now I'm reinvesting in you, or I've got this contact and I'm going to help you develop your businesses to that point. So personally, it's around inspiring that sense of Ubuntu, and business wise, it's around actually providing the opportunities and the access to entrepreneurs that really just need the hand up.
That's quite the dream, and I hope that um, that you're able to accomplish that, to like aid in the progress of like Africa, because we are really in a rich continent, like as you said, full of culture, full of like our culture is so rich, and if we unlock that, and if we tap into that potential, we could just soar. And I love your vision for ground culture and your personal vision. Um, and speaking of a journey, how could you share maybe any ways that listeners can follow you and like be a part of your journey?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think Instagram, like we spoke about before, the call is our fun way. We really try and show you the good and the bad of building a business. So it's ground culture underscore on Instagram, or ground cultures on Facebook. And we do have a TikTok account as well. I'm not I'm old school, so I'm too old for TikTok. But no, we have a really cool TikTok account. I think it's ground culture underscore as well. Um, yeah, we're having a lot of fun making reels and really showing what it's like to build a business, and we're really trying to build a community. Like I said in the last question, we really want to inspire this idea of Ubuntu, and that's what we're trying to build in our community. So if you follow us on Instagram, or TikTok or Facebook, or you're really joining our community as well. And we'd love to engage with you, send us a message. We'd love to collaborate on any kind of events. We do a lot of events in our cafe. It's a big part of what we do. We're getting our liquor license in a month or two, um, and really want to focus on kind of these kind of entrepreneurial events. We'll be live streaming them as well, discussing with township-based entrepreneurs, bringing them into the conversation, bringing the formal sector into the conversation, having really difficult conversations around white privilege, around BE, around corruption, around racism, around politics. Like, we need to have these conversations, and as comfortable as they are, that's the only way we're going to progress forward. So, yeah, please follow us on Instagram to kind of get all those insights as well as our delicious food and opening of new things. And there's a few cool things coming this year, so you can keep in touch there. But yeah, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, ground culture underscore. But I'm sure it'll come up if you type ground culture.
Perfect. Thank you. And I just wanted to ask, are there any final words that you have for our listeners, to end this in episode off?
I think just go for it. I think it depends if you are looking at entrepreneurship. I would also just like if you're not 100% set on wanting to be an entrepreneur and risking the next 5 years, or not risking, committing the next 5 years of your life to making it work, because that's really what it's going to take. Is 5 years of being broke, watching your friends make make a lot of money as well, especially when you get to my age, which is 29. I'm not I'm not old, but I've got friends making a lot of money, and I'm still sitting here, broke. Not broke, but reinvesting majority of what we make back into the business. And yeah, it hopefully pays itself out in the future, but it's hard, And if you're not 100% sure, I'd say go get a job and build your business on the side. Build something on the side. It's just having that stability of a salary, and having that stability of learning as well, because you learn a lot when you work for someone, and then having the ability to really have fun with your business, and to take the constraint of you out of it. I do think you learn a lot in with a survivalist mentality, but it's incredibly stressful. It's incredibly yeah, but take your fire out a bit. You'll learn a lot because you have to hustle. And kind of when not kind of getting out of that phase, it has been 5 years though. So yeah, that would really be my. I think it's actually been 6 years this year. But yeah, my advice would be go out and get it. But if you have the opportunity to work for someone and you can easily still do it on the side, I would recommend doing that. Until the point where it's comfortably standing on its own legs. It's comfortably able to pay you your salary that you were earning at your job, and it requires you full time. Then I would recommend taking the plunge in. But yeah, just be sure, because it's bloody hard, and it's exhausting, and it's tiring, but it's really worth it in the long run. Being in control of something, and I think it's an incredibly effective vehicle for change, if done correctly, and if done without a heavy reliance of having to pay your support your family and support your staff all at the same time.
Thank you. Those were very insightful words. And yeah, it's been a pleasure hearing your story, um, and the story that you want to write, for the rest of your life. So thank you for this, and we look forward to joining you on your journey, and even maybe doing another interview in 2 years' time and seeing where you are. So again, thank you so much for this opportunity, Sebastian.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you very much for having me. And yeah, good luck this year. Smash it.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. I think what I took from this episode and interviewing Sebastian was just how authentic he was when talking about where he had to start from and where to reach where he is now. Strongly highlighting the reality of choosing to be an entrepreneur in our South African context, as well as the fact that progress is not linear. If you liked this episode and would like to hear more, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Audible, and to follow us on Instagram, X, and TikTok. Till next time, stay safe and keep moving.